Are you an author that intrudes into your own novel? If you are, you're going to want to listen to today's episode because we're going to talk about author intrusion and how to avoid that and let your characters tell the story.
You have a story to tell, but you don't know where to start. Let me show you how to free your story. I teach you how to write and how to dig deep in your soul to release your story and make a difference in the world.
Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we are just meeting, I am Julia Amante and I'm a women's fiction author. And I like to come on to YouTube and give writing advice on Fridays. So thank you for being here. So let's talk about this idea of author intrusion. What exactly is that? What does that mean? One of the things that we're told as authors all the time is that we should actually have a presence in our novel, right? We should have a voice. Our style should be evident from the beginning. As people pick up our novels and they read it, they should feel that it is our book, right? And this was kind of confusing to me as a beginning writer. It's like, well, wait a minute. If I'm supposed to have a voice and I'm supposed to have, show my style in writing, then what do you mean not intrude in my novel? And is that intrusion into the novel? Well, no, it's not. It's something different. So your voice and your style is or does become clear to readers over time as you write more and more books, and the books seem to have similarities. They have maybe similar themes, or they have similar types of characters, or there's just something about it. Either the it could be the style, it could be the type of language that you use, the vocabulary, the formality. All of that is something that comes through your own writing without you intruding into the novel. So when you're intruding into the novel, what you're doing is you are pulling the reader out of the story to add things in there that either the characters don't know, but you're acting as if they do, or you are doing other things like adding your beliefs and moral stands or political stands or whatever into a book. And there's kind of tricky ways that writers do that. But it's not a good tricky way because the reader knows that you're doing it. And when the reader can feel that, when the reader says, well, wait a minute, why is this character going off on a rant about something else that isn't really part of the story? It doesn't normally, like the character really wouldn't talk about that. What it does is it pulls the reader out of your story, and now they realize they're reading and they're not happy. Okay, so you don't want to do that. And so what I would like to do is, now I'm going to link one of my blogs where I wrote about this, so that you can see what it is I'm talking about. And but I'm going to read a few little examples here. Okay, so one way that an author intrudes is by adding those details and facts into a novel that maybe in different ways. Okay, so that again, it could be through a character, by what a character says, or it could be in various ways. But it's just kind of dumping information into your story that really shouldn't be there. So one example is that I'm going to give you is when a character does it through kind of taking over the narrator's voice and just commenting on things. Okay, so I'm going to give you this example. So the narrator would say something like, Paul normally wouldn't punch his boss, but today he would, and this would change the course of his life. Okay, so what's happening here? The character, the author, through this narrator's voice, is telling us about the future. Okay, and what the reason we don't want to do that, the reason that it's a bad idea for you to do that, is you're not allowing the reader to experience this. You're just telling them. So now they know not only that Paul is going to punch the boss, but now that this is going to upset the rest of his life. Well, why am I going to read the rest of the novel now? Okay, you've just kind of told me what's going to happen. Where instead of letting me watch it, so Paul goes in there, he punches his boss, he gets fired, he gets thrown out of the building. Then, we watch as a series of events happen. Maybe Paul can't find a new job. Now Paul's going to lose his house and his cars and all this stuff because he can't make his payments. And then maybe his marriage is going to fall apart because of all these things that he's doing. Maybe he becomes very bitter, being whatever, has a very bad attitude, can't find his job, can't pay the bills. The wife gets tired of it and leaves him. Now he's homeless. Now maybe he starts drinking. Okay, so whatever. We watch this guy have all these horrible things happen to him, but we watch it happen rather than just the narrator telling us that okay, this one thing is going to change the rest of his life. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to tell the reader things into the future. We want to just let the reader experience it and see it happen. Okay. So the other way that authors tend to intrude into a story is by um, kind of taking, sounding kind of preachy, right? So taking their ideas, their beliefs about things, and inserting them into the novel, either through the narrator's voice or sometimes through another character's voice. And again, readers are not dumb. They can hear that. They can hear the difference in the story, and all of a sudden they're not interested in the story anymore because even if they agree with you, they don't want that. They want to read a story. They want to be involved in the magic of the story. And so, an example of that could be a mother character, maybe, okay, a secondary character talking to a daughter. Okay, and saying something like getting married too young always leads to divorce. Didn't I tell you that you shouldn't have gotten married so young? Your Aunt Betty married at 17, and you know what happened to her marriage. Okay, so and it could be all at once like this, or it could be just repetitive over time where she's always saying that. Now, it could be that that's her personality, and that's fine if we establish that, mom is very, anti-young marriage, anti-marriage, maybe completely, whatever. If we establish that mom has this belief and this is mom, okay, this is the way she is, then it's okay. Because this is who she is. And, the character could get annoyed about that. It could be just that character. But if it's just a way, maybe she says it, maybe the best friend says the same thing, maybe the sister says the same thing. Well, now it starts to sound like it's just the author intruding into the story and telling the reader what to think. And the readers don't like that. What's even worse is when it starts to sound like the preaching is coming from the character themselves. So sometimes the author will just put the words into the character's mouth and then the character thinks them or says them. So an example of the character thinking them is this. So let's say that the main character has noticed that a coworker is stealing from the company and trying to decide whether they should turn them in or not. Okay, so the character or internal monologue for the character would sound something like this. Stealing is wrong. It doesn't matter why it's done. If I turn a blind eye just because the thief is my friend, I'm no better than she is, and so on. Okay, so what's happening here is the character is, again, the narrator is telling the character what to think and what to believe, and it's not a thing where the character is just debating, right? The character could do this, could say something like, uh, I found out, oh my God, I just found out that it's my best friend, or it's my friend who is stealing. Now what am I going to do? Because I I feel that stealing is wrong, but I also want to be loyal to my friend, and I just don't know what to do. Okay, so it could be that where the character is kind of dealing with two different moral feelings or beliefs that the character has, without the author just telling the character what to believe. So that's again another example of intruding into the story through kind of this preachy internal dialogue that the character has. So another way that the author can sometimes intrude is not even knowing that they're doing it. Okay, so um, they try to avoid sound like being repetitive and saying the character's name over and over again. And they do something like this. And at first, it doesn't sound actually bad, but then I'll tell you why it is. Okay. So, something like Kim sipped a cup of coffee, basking in the comfort of her warm home. The intelligent executive waited for her cheating husband to arrive home to throw his ass out. Okay. So, what's happening here? If we are separated from Kim, right? So we are sort of this narrator that's sort of above seeing everything. Then it doesn't sound bad. But if we are in Kim's point of view, if Kim is sitting there, we are in her head, we're in her thoughts, and she's thinking about, she's drinking her coffee, just kind of fuming, thinking about her husband and her and how he's cheated and so forth. And then would she think of herself as, um, what was it I said? The intelligent executive. Would she think of herself that way? No, of course not. We don't think of ourselves that way, right? So we don't want to write it that way. Now, would she think of her husband as the cheating husband? Yes. Now, if we were in his point of view, of course, he wouldn't think of himself that way, or maybe he would, but he probably wouldn't say that, right? So what we want to make sure we're doing is that we are always in asking ourselves, are we in the point of view of that character? And if we are, would that character think that, say that, believe that? Okay. And that will help you a lot in kind of avoiding this kind of intrusion. Um, and the reason that it's bad again is because it pulls the reader out of the story. The reader just all of a sudden realizes they're reading, and they're out of the story. They're no longer happy. So how do we avoid this? We want to try to avoid it as much as possible. Well, really, there's two things. The first thing is you remind yourself that you always want to write from the point of view of a character of the character. And if you are writing from the point of view of the character, would the character say something, do something, believe something that you're putting into, that you're writing? And if not, then you have to take it out. So if the character wouldn't say something like that, if the character wouldn't think something like that, then you have to take that out, because again, it's just you, not the character, thinking that. One of the things you want to pay close attention to is the way that the character speaks. So again, if you're in their point of view, you're speaking, their voice is coming through. I remember back a few years ago, I noticed that my characters were saying "wow" a lot, and that I thought, why are all my characters saying that? Well, because it's something that I say, it's something that I do. And so all my characters can't have my same speech patterns. They can't say the same things that I say. They have to have their own vocabulary, their own speech patterns, their own way of saying things. And so I took almost all of them out, right? Except for a character that I wanted to speak that way. So you want to watch out for things like that sometimes you're not seeing. Another thing that another way that you can avoid it is sometimes you put it gets in there anyway, but you go through your revisions and you take all of those out. So you read it with just the thought of, how am I going to get all of my intrusions out of there and make sure that I have it, that it's just the character speaking. So going through a revision process and where you're just looking for that and taking those things out will help you a lot. So in the first place is just avoid getting them in there, and the second is trying to take them out. Now you can write from an all-knowing narrator, right? So an omniscient narrator knows it all. And if you read like some of the older literary novels, they used to have a lot of those type of narrators that would tell you the story, but the narrator was almost like a character. The narrator did know everything that was going to happen, and he was sort of like this god figure that was over the story. And if you wanted to write a story like that, first of all, you want to make sure that you're letting the reader know from the very beginning. So you're setting it up that this narrator is this all-knowing narrator. And if that's the case, then that's fine. Again, because the reader will know that this narrator is doing this. However, you also want to make sure, and you want to be careful that you're not again telling the reader things that you want to let them find out on their own. So you don't always want to tell the reader, even if you are this all-knowing narrator, that what's going to happen in the future. You want to let the reader figure it out. Otherwise, there's no fun reading it. So, that's just kind of one thing to keep in mind if you do want to have that type of narrator. So, the whole point is that reading should be this very rewarding experience where the reader gets to leave their normal life. They get to leave their world and go into the world of the story. And when they open up that book, they should be poured into it, right? They should just forget that they even exist in this plane, in this world, and be in that world. And anytime that they're reminded that, oh, wait, yeah, no, I'm just reading the story, it's not good. I mean, obviously the reader's not dumb. They know they're reading the story, but they can forget about everything while they're reading that. But every time that you remind them that, oh, yeah, no, I have this belief, this thing that I'm trying to tell you, then it makes the reading less magical and, of course, less enjoyable. So one of the things you want to make sure that you're doing is that you're aware of this author intrusion, that you take that out or not put it in there to begin with. Okay, so I hope that helps and clears up a little bit about what author intrusion is so that you can avoid it completely. All right, I hope that this has been helpful. If it has, please hit the like button and the share button, and I will see you again for next Friday's writing tip.